preparing. Setting up our meeting on Facebook Live. It's redirecting. And we are now live.
All right, well, thank you, Lauren. Welcome back, everyone, to the Christina Lee Brown Environment Institute's Science Communication Office Hours. To give you a little bit of background about the Institute, we are an integrative group of physicians, scientists, engineers, epidemiologists, economists, psychologists, statisticians, sociologists, and community members working to turn scientific discovery into actionable knowledge. And so researchers within the Environment Institute study how conditions of the human environment promote health or instigate disease. And we do this in a number of ways, and we have 7 collaborative centers within the Institute to help us accomplish these goals and objectives. We have monthly science communication hours, such as this one, that are streamed live on Facebook to have the opportunity to share with and hear directly from the wider community. So if you want to be getting more in touch with us at the Environment Institute, please visit our website at envirominstitute.org, or you can simply join us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by looking up the hashtag #ThisIsEnvirom. So the last time we were together, we learned a lot about volatile organic compounds from Dr. Jordan Lynch. Additionally, Lauren also shared the latest findings from the community study, our COVID research project, and showed us how to use the COVID dashboard to study wastewater measurements of COVID infection within our community. This week, we have exciting developments to share with you in terms of co-immunity and wastewater. We'll hear about it a little bit later. In addition, we'll hear from our special guest today, Dr. Alok Amraotkar, who will be sharing about the NEAT trial. But first, let me allow our communications team to introduce themselves. Natasha, would you like to go first?
Thank you very much. I am Natasha D. Durnet. I'm an assistant professor of environmental medicine here in the Environment Institute. My interests are in climate change and health, as well as environmental health disparities. Lauren, would you like to share next?
Yes, hi everyone. I am excited to join today from the U of L Ekstrom Library, where I've just completed presenting about our Green Heart project, which Alok also knows very much about. So if anyone out there is interested in hearing about Green Heart, you can look that up on the U of L EcoReps Facebook and websites here shortly.
And Alex, this is your first time joining us, so please introduce yourself and take some creative liberty with your time if you like.
Sure, yeah, I'll try not to take too much creative liberty, but I'm Alex Carl. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Physiology, but also within the Christina Lee Brown Environment Institute. I've been here at the University of Louisville for the past, I think, going on 6 years now. And my primary focus is on the impacts of inhaled toxins on cardiovascular physiology, and also environmental stressors, how they adversely impact, especially the heart. So my specialty is primarily in cardiac electrophysiology, looking at arrhythmias and determining how the brain's regulation of the heart may actually factor into the impacts of environmental agents on heart function. So glad to be here. I've been a part of the communications team, I guess, in the background for, I don't know, a year now, maybe. And happy to chime in whenever I can. Jason, happy to hand it off to you now, though.
All right, thanks, Alex. Just a quick couple seconds about myself. I'm assistant professor in the Division of Environmental Medicine, more specifically in the Diabetes Obesity Center. My lab's interested in understanding how exercise and diet contribute to inflammation resolution. And we're very interested in novel lipid mediators that are important signaling molecules that actually signal the end or the termination of inflammatory signals. So with that, we'll transition. As I noted before, we have a special guest with us, Dr. Alok Amraotkar. Alok received his medical degree from Var State Medical University. He then migrated, I guess, to the state of Kentucky, where he obtained a master's in public health and hospital administration from Western Kentucky University. Following that, he completed his postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Louisville in the Division of Cardiovascular Medicine, working in the American Heart Association's Tobacco Research Addiction Center. Dr. Amraotkar's work focuses on acute myocardial infarction and other mechanisms of cardiovascular injury, including the role of environmental factors in these pathologies. He serves as the co-principal investigator for the Division of Environmental Medicine's first in-house phase 2 placebo-controlled randomized clinical trial, NEAT. Dr. Amraotkar is an active scientific reviewer for peer-reviewed journals and serves on 2 committees with the American Heart Association, one being the ATVB Council Membership Committee, as well as the Council Diversity Committee. So we welcome you, Alok, and we look forward to hearing about the NEAT trial.
Thank you very much, Jason, for that very, very generous introduction about myself. Give me 1 second. I'm going to start sharing my slides because I want to get into the meat of the matter of what I would like to speak about today. Let me know if you guys can actually see that. Okay, perfect. All right, so very briefly, what I want to talk about today is I want to give you a few insights from the NEAT trial. And as Dr. Hellman, a few seconds back told us that it's the Environment Institute's first phase 2 randomized clinical trial. I think that's a very major accomplishment for the Institute, and I'm very honored to be involved in this. So just to clarify, I have no financial or any kind of disclosures which could create any kind of potential conflict of interest. I think I can very safely say I'm a very impartial scientist in this situation. The goals for today's talk are very simple. I just want to introduce everyone about the NEAT trial. And at the end of the day, if I'm able to build collaborative partnerships with everyone from the community, if not everyone, even if it's one person from the community or one person from another part of U of L's divisions, I think that would be fantastic. I think that would be my goal, 100% achieved. So quickly, the NEAT trial, we call it NEAT, and as scientists, we really love acronyms. But going back to the scientific name for the study, it's the Nucleophilic Defense Against Particulate Matter Toxicity, NEAT trial. The principal investigators for the grant, which is funded by the National Institutes of Health, are Dr. Timothy O'Toole and Dr. Aruni Bhatnagar. I am a co-principal investigator or co-investigator on the actual study and how the study will be conducted. But the actual grant has been awarded to Dr. O'Toole and Dr. Bhatnagar, and I'm actually one of the investigators on the grant as well. The study is registered on clinicaltrials.gov. So if you have any questions, you can always go back to this number, or you can search for NEAT trial, and that should show up. Very quickly about the study. So before I start throwing around these acronyms, I want to kind of establish that PM 2.5, when we talk about PM 2.5, that's essentially particulate matter, which is smaller than 2.5 microns. That's in a sense, that's a fine particulate matter. If it's extremely teeny, tiny, small, it's smaller, definitely smaller than what your eyes can actually see. And it's so small that when you breathe it, your lungs, it goes into your lungs, and it's able to go through the barrier in your lungs, and it goes into your blood. What we've seen is when you breathe that in, and it goes into your bloodstream, that creates a lot of different free radicals and some reactions inside in your blood. And everyone who breathes in this PM 2.5 pollution is exposed to that. And what that does to our bodies is that it increases our risk of having cardiovascular disease. Now, here's the good part of the whole situation. Our labs, especially Dr. Timothy O'Toole's lab, has found that when you give carnosine, which is also known as beta-L-histidine supplementation. When you give that to mice, that has the potential to reduce oxidative stress in the body. So carnosine just goes like a police officer and just loop, loop, stops these free radicals which are floating around in the blood. And that's why carnosine essentially has the potential to reduce the harmful effects of PM2.5 pollution. So the hypothesis here is written up in italics, and I don't want to, I apologize for I'm just getting over a cold. I don't want to repeat that, but essentially we want to blunt the effects, the adverse effects of this air pollution. There are two study groups. One is the intervention group. The second one is the placebo group. The intervention group will receive 2 grams of carnosine per day. That's essentially 4 tablets. Each tablet is half a gram. And so we ask people to take 2 tablets in the morning, 2 in the day, in the evening. And the placebo group is cornstarch. Here's the fun part. Nobody knows which group they are in, essentially, because it's a randomized double blind, which means I, as the investigator, don't know who's getting what, and the participant or the patient doesn't know what they're getting. The only people who know is a very specific committee of people, which is the statisticians and few other people. And that is done so that there is no bias. And one of the reasons behind it is, think about it. If I know one of the participants, and if I know who's getting what, there someone can come up and say, oh, by the way, you know what? This group was cherry picked, and that's why the results are shown this way. Or if the participants know what they're getting, half the participants who are okay to taking risks will take the actual intervention, and the other half who are like, I don't think I don't want to take the risk. So there'll be some kind of a bias on that. That's the reason we want to always have a dual blinding. And that's why I don't know who's getting what. The other person, the participant who's getting, they don't know that either. So going back a few steps, the foundation of the study is what Dr. O'Toole and his team did in the lab. And what we essentially found out is when we had mice in our labs, and when we subjected those mice to some kind of a limb ischemia, meaning their back limbs, back legs, we made sure that they were not getting enough blood flow, and then there was some kind of a lack of blood flow and some injury due to lack of blood flow. When we started giving these people carnosine, we realized that when carnosine was going in, it was helping these vasculature, these arteries heal a lot faster. Here's another thing. What's something new about it? The new part here is these mice were exposed to the PM2.5 pollution. So under the whole situation of a pollution, if you look at the top, one second, I can show my. Oh, there it is. Okay, so if you look at the top portion here, that's normal. So this is the so the red is red is not good. So if you look at it in the normal mice who did not get carnosine, you can see there's a lot more red here as compared to mice who got carnosine. And then if you look at it statistically, mice who got carnosine, their recovery was so much significantly higher than mice who got just water in their carnosine. So that sets the stage. So now we know that when there is pollution, and if you give carnosine, the amount of vascular recovery, the potential for vascular recovery is very significant. And so we're like, yeah, this is great news. Let's go to the NIH, and we wrote up a grant, and we were like, okay, we want to test this hypothesis in humans. So this is the team that we actually have. We have a whole set of research coordinators. We have summer students who helped out, medical students, research techs, postdocs, the study physician, because you want to see and make sure that everyone is safe and secure. There is a DSMB, as I was saying. This is the only team who actually knows who's getting what, and they never tell you. Believe me, even if you harass them, they're not going to fork out who's getting what. And then Dr. Gao is the one in charge for the data management. Mind you, this team does not include the three big players who are actually running the whole show. That's essentially me, Dr. O'Toole, and Dr. Bhatnagar. So very quickly, this is, I like to call this as the Mona Lisa of the whole project, because this puts a lot of things into perspective. This is essentially phase one of screening. We started with screening almost, I think we went more than 1,000 people. We ended up, sifting through different medical records, different data that we had on different people. I think we ended up with almost 1,400 people. And out of those 1,400, I think approximately 200, 300 people failed due to whatever the primary reasons. Out of those, we ended up calling actually a good 800 people. And out of those, 400 qualified. And then this number was assumption, but this is not 300, 227 people, which is still close, nearby. So 227 people showed up. Okay, so out of those 227, actually not 200, but 200 and it's 240, not 240, I'm sorry, 114 qualified. And out of those 114, instead of 160, we were able to randomize people. So just so that if nobody is confused, this is again the enrollment assumption. You always want to go on with an assumption saying, oh, this is what my plan is going to be. And then the plan differs a little bit. So let's just go with this was the plan that, I wanted to have 300 people show up for the screening, 200 would qualify, 160 would agree, 80 would be in treatment, 80 would be in placebo. And then you want to calculate that almost 60 people out of 80 will make it through, because life happens. People will agree initially, and then due to some reason, people are not able to complete the whole study, and that's completely fine. We're working with humans, and that's the whole fun part of doing this. And so we went with the assumption that this first year we would be able to complete enrollment of 120 people, 60 in the treatment group, 60 in the placebo group. And essentially, that's exactly what's going to happen on the second year as well. We have to split it into 2 years because we are trying to look at a total of 240 people, 120 total in the treatment, 120 in the placebo. So the criteria to invite anyone for screening essentially was anyone who was living within 30 miles of Louisville. And so that's why we want to include anyone who is within these Kentucky counties, not anyone, but people within the Kentuckiana area, and then Indiana counties as well. Age has to be 22 years or more. We want someone who consumes some kind of meat in their diet, and that's because carnosine is primarily derived from meat, and your chicken, 1 pound of chicken, has a huge amount of carnosine. We want someone who wants to agree to complete all 4 study visits, and definitely someone who is going to agree to take the proper follow study protocols. I think this puts a lot of things into perspective here. 30 miles radius, and the reason why this radius is important is because we have PM2.5 is measured at different locations by different stations, but due to some reason, not all stations are measuring PM2.5 anymore. The main station which is measuring it is now Cannons Lane. For those of you who live in Louisville, it's off of Bowman Field Airport. And that's, I think, somewhere around here in this area. So as per the device's manufacturer's guidelines, 30-mile radius, 30-mile radius from this station is going to have the same amount of, so if someone's PM2.5 measurements are taken over here versus here, they're going to be pretty close. That's why that way we can make sure that the amount of exposure for this whole area is going to be pretty much the same. And that's really important. So when someone comes in, we ask people to come in for a total of 4 visits, and then the 4 to 12 month of just safety checkup to just make sure that people are safe and secure. During the first visit, we take their consent so that they allow us to enroll them into the whole study. And then we collect the contact and demographic information. We collect it first during the first visit, and then we update it during the second visits. Definitely medical history. You want to make sure that if there have been any changes. Study questionnaire, blood urine samples, physical exam, and just and I'll go into a little bit more detail about this, but we realize that everyone's time is precious, so there is some kind of a compensation that people get. For the screening visit, we give out a $25 gift card, $50, $75, and then $100 for the next ones. The total number of visits, as I said, there's 4 number of visits. The first one is clinical screening. It's essentially we try to get as many people as possible, a representative sample from the whole community. And then out of those, we identify who qualifies and who does not qualify. Okay? And people who qualify, essentially, we want people whose carnosine levels are less than the median of the whole community. So we want to identify people who have lower carnosine levels, and then we'll randomize them into either treatment or placebo. And so then the second visit would be baseline. Third would be follow-up. Follow-up would be 6 weeks after baseline. Follow-up 2 would be 12 weeks after baseline. And then this safety checkup would be 4 to 12 months after baseline. So going back to this thing again, this Mona Lisa, for the first year, we have been able to complete the entire ensemble here. I'm very proud of the entire team for helping out with this. So we've been able to go from all the way from here through here. Okay. Unfortunately, because the 4th visits have just concluded, we don't have completion data on the 4th visit, but I can give you a good idea of what has happened through the 3rd visit. Okay. So let's go with the screening visits. The screening visits, as I was saying initially, we just get a population representation from the whole community. You see, as we see, the amount of females that we have is definitely higher as compared to males. And that's always going to be true for research. I think in our study, I think we had somewhere around 70% representation from females, 68 or 70%. Normally, it's somewhere around 55 to 60, but I think that's how we were seeing as a response from the community. Race-wise, predominantly Caucasian whites, but we do have some representation from other races as well. Now, this is really interesting. Annual income, which is on the left side, and then the education, which is on the right side, we have a very decent distribution, like people from all different kinds of annual incomes and education from the community are participating in the study, which is really fantastic. It's really exciting for me, everyone. And then the age, this is really interesting. Look at this. This is a very good spread of the age. Like everyone, we have from the screening visits, we have a good spread. The median age is 46 years, which is good. Let's go up until visit number 3. As I was saying, I have some data to show up on that. It's 6 weeks follow-up. Visit number 4 would be 12 weeks follow-up. 24 are male and 71 are female. We have completed visit number 3 for 95 people. Out of those, 24 are males and 71 are females. Race is again a pretty similar distribution to what we saw in the screening visits. Predominantly white. We do have a few Asian racial ethnicities, and then a few Black. And then annual income, it's pretty much the same. So visit number 3, so people who finished 6 visits, it's pretty similar to how we screened from the community. Again, the median age, if you remember, it was 46 years in the screening area, and it's 49 years in this. So I think that kind of brings me to one of my last slides. I definitely want to thank everyone. But as I set out in the beginning of the presentation, I really want everyone to kind of get an idea of what's going on with the study, what are we doing, what kind of people are we collaborating with, and what can the community do? The community can definitely help us answer this question. Meaning, if someone takes carnosine, which is an over-the-counter available supplement, which is you don't need a doctor's prescription, you can just go and get it. It's usually present in a lot of the health supplements. If you take power drinks or something, it's usually present in that. So if you take that, does that help you get some kind of protection from pollution? And at the end of the day, the answer is not just carnosine. What if carnosine opens up the answer as to, oh, something similar to carnosine, maybe this, maybe this, and then eventually the answer comes down to saying, oh, you know what, actually, if we cannot control the pollution around us, maybe we can create some kind of a situation around us where we are protected against the pollution. I definitely want to thank everyone who's in the team. Everyone who helps out in any ways is in the team. And so this is the pre-screener website and the flyer. So if you are ever interested, if you have even a remote interest in the study, if you want to ask more questions, if you want to find out, hey, do I qualify? Do I not qualify? Or I want to help out with the study. I can't participate, but I would like to talk a little more about the study to the rest of my team or my family members. This is where you would find that. And if you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to the study coordinators here at ctu.louisville.edu or on this platform on Facebook, and we'll be more than happy to set you up. The easiest way is to just go to this website, neatstudyky.com, or scan this QR code and it'll essentially take you down there. And on that website, you can just fill out very few simple questions, and it'll tell you whether you qualify or don't qualify. Well, that kind of brings me to the end of my lengthy conversation here. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer those right now or later on. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Alok. It was very interesting to hear about the details and the planning that go into the study design in essence, and how that is fulfilled. I'm sure the team has several questions for you, and so I will kick it off. It's a very interesting trial, and there's opportunity here to learn protective factors that will protect and advance health and wellness. My question for you is, what do you say to people that are hesitant, that might be a little bit distrusting of research? They're interested in contributing to science, but they have a little bit of hesitancy. And please go ahead and stop sharing your slides so that we can see the whole group.
And I am going to stop sharing.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
So yes, what do you say to people that might be hesitant to participate in a trial like this?
I think first and foremost, my first and foremost sentence would be, I think hesitancy is natural. I think it's completely, I do not want to discount any one's hesitancy, and that could be just for whatever information that you've had or the history that we've had. But there are a host of protection plans which are set in place. One of the first ones is the Institutional Review Board, which is the governing regulatory review board. Every study has to have that. Nobody can just start standing on the side of the ground and be like, hey, I'm going to do this study. A good study, essentially, or any study for that matter, has to be approved by an Institutional Review Board. I think luckily for us, our institutional review board is the University of Louisville. It has an institutional review board which undergoes a very rigorous assessment. Believe me, if I have to make any change to even one question that I'm asking or anything that I have to change on the enrollment website, it has to go through that committee. And that committee is made up of not just scientists and physicians and everyone, but also community members, people who are out in the community and who understand these questions. We were actually asked multiple times about why are we asking certain questions. If you ask these questions, I think you're going to not reach out to the community and think, so it's been very much of a learning experience. So that's the first thing, right? So if you have any concerns about your safety or the safety of your information, anything that we're asking is specifically for research purposes only. And we cannot just willy-nilly stand up one day and be like, hey, I'm asking this. No, that has to go through a host of approvals. And that's essentially approvals from our people who live out in Louisville and the medical community. The second thing is, at the end of the day, there are so many things put in place so that any data that we collect is specifically for research. It is very safe and secure. Not, anything that we collect will be used only for research purposes. We cannot, nobody is ever going to sell your data. Nobody is going to use it for anything other than research. Anything that you do is eventually, at the end of the day, for progress of science. There is, we when you sign a consent, it's very, we make a very good point of making sure everyone has enough time to read the consent, understand the consent. If you have any questions, we answer those questions. And overall, let's say we take these steps and we try to explain these things to you. And if you still have questions and concerns, absolutely, by all means, you can always back out. You can back out before you sign the consent, or you can back out after you sign the consent, saying, you know what, I don't feel comfortable, I don't want to do the study. And that's perfectly fine. I think that's the whole point of doing the study, because if we don't have the public's confidence, there's no point in doing this for the public. I hope that answers it in a host of answers.
Could I chime in?
Sure.
I think one thing that maybe needs to be considered is that, physicians, they sort of sign up for the job under the Hippocratic Oath, which is, do no harm. And that's kind of the first tenet of practicing medicine. And a clinical trial is a critical element of practicing medicine and understanding, how to improve medical practices, but public health as well. This study is clearly designed to do no harm. We're taking individuals who are exposed incidentally to air pollution, to ambient air, and there is no, deliberate exposure of any participant to air pollution. It's just what we breathe in every day throughout the course of our lives. And Dr. Amraotkar is trying to, unveil a way to protect people from that everyday exposure. So there really is no inherent harm potential in this study. Taking this dietary supplement has been shown to be safe and well tolerated. I think, maybe we could address some possible concerns about side effects of the dietary supplement. If, anybody's concerned, I would imagine that's part of the consenting process. But to my understanding, they're very minor.
So, yes, absolutely. So the number of side effects that we have seen with the total number of visits, I think they're less than 1%. Like majority of the people, because the dose that we're giving has already been tested in a few other studies where 2 grams of carnosine is a decent dose, but carnosine again in itself, just think about it this way. What we're asking you to do is eat a good version of healthy chicken every day for 12 weeks. It's white meat. And so we've not seen any side effects. I shouldn't say, we've seen side effects, but they are very, very minor side effects in the sense someone, I think at some point had some kind of a diarrhea, but then that person already had a history of diarrhea whenever they took dietary supplements. And I'm bringing this out in the open because if you have that history, then that is covered during the consent consent period. And that person, I still remember that person said, hey, I have a history of getting diarrhea when I take over-the-counter supplements, but I still want to participate in the study. If I do get diarrhea, I'll report it. I was like, yeah, absolutely, please do that. And that's how it went forward. But I think that's one of the only bigger things that we've seen in terms of side effects, because we consume carnosine left and right throughout our day. Also, carnosine is produced by our body to begin with. And so it's something which the body produces, and we're taking some extra out of the environment.
Thanks. Great question, Alex. Thank you, Alok. And then Jason, do you have any follow-up questions for Alok?
I just have one. Obviously you're talking about hesitancy and how natural that is. I was just curious, given last year, the pandemic, and kind of how things have turned. I was curious, have you noticed any change in hesitancy before or after the pandemic?
That's surprisingly, I'll be very honest, it has surprised me, but we have not seen a big change in hesitancy. Our goal was to now, for those of you who understand the scientific rigor behind this, to randomize people with 4 visits, essentially, right? Three visits after randomization. We set out with a very ambitious target of 120 people first year. We were able to randomize 95 people through 3 visits. I think that's phenomenal during a COVID year. This is not even after COVID. This is during COVID. This happened during the whole Delta wave. And we've not had any incidences where we had to, put our staff on the sidelines or say, oh, everyone needs to be quarantined and everything, because the people who participated were like, yeah, I definitely want to participate. I'll take all the necessary measures which are needed, and I'll follow the protocol. So we actually, I think during COVID, we've not seen a big hit in terms of our enrollment. Now, with that said, does that mean we don't need to keep pushing for a higher level of enrollment next year? No, I think next year, we're guilty of our own success. Next year, I think we need to do a little more and enroll a lot more people. And that's where I think today's talk will probably help out. It will get the message out to a lot more people, and hopefully we'll overshine whatever we did this year.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Alok Amraotkar, for taking time to speak with us, to share with us about the NEAT trial. We certainly will disseminate this video. We hope that your message will be reached by people far and wide, and there'll be an uptick in emails or people following up with interest in the study. So thank you so much for your service to the field, but also for taking time to explain to us. And as you have research findings, we would love for you to come back and share with our audience once more.
Absolutely. So I think I'll definitely keep up to my promise. As soon as the first manuscript is published, I will come down to the talk, and I will go through that manuscript very, very rigorously. I promise.
Perfect. We would love it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for having me on here. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, so we will now transition. We'll quickly share with you some highlights on some happenings that have occurred, and also share with you some upcoming items for you to be aware of. So bear with me just a moment. Can I please have screen sharing abilities?
Yes, I just made you the.
Got it. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. So just very briefly, it's been such an exciting time for our communications team. Last time we talked with you, we shared about our Why We Mask campaign. So first, we want to thank everyone who has liked and shared our posts. We've had 12 of our faculty and students who have described the reasons why they are masked and or vaccinated. And so you can see pictures of them here and even some of their families. So these were quite inspirational. And we wanted to utilize these to help inspire more vaccinations. At the time of this, the vaccination numbers were trailing. We really wanted to help inspire this, certainly here on University of Louisville's campus, but also beyond. And we also wanted to promote actions like masking that help prevent the spread of COVID. So this campaign still continues because we are still in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Many developments have occurred since the last time that we had our open doors science communications meeting. There's been FDA approval, full approval for the Pfizer vaccine. Boosters have become available. Vaccines are now available for children. So much has happened, but we still need the vigilance. So we welcome you to continue to be a part of our Why We Mask campaign. And you can do this by sending us a message of why you are masked and are vaccinated. Don't forget the selfie with yourself in a mask. You can send that to environ@louisville.edu, or you are welcome to tweet directly at us at U of L Environ. As a part of the Why We Mask initiative in September, we hosted a virtual forum, and we heard from esteemed researchers and health leaders here at University of Louisville from the School of Medicine, dentistry, public health, and nursing. And so this conversation was recorded. So if you missed it, don't worry, it was recorded, and you're welcome to go to our website at louisville.edu/environ. If you go to the tab that says COVID, under that tab, you can navigate to a page that says Vaccines and Variants Forum. Click there and you'll find the recording to be able to go back and watch this, and also learn more about the exciting panelists that contributed to this discussion. Our new initiative this year was starting these science communications office hours, where we open the doors of our weekly meeting, and we wanted to open the doors to allow for public feedback, public interaction, and to allow researchers like Dr. Alok Amraotkar to interact directly with the public. So please leave comments on our videos, and if you missed the first two, go back and watch our videos before. We had great resources and tools and the latest research to share there, and there's still much to be learned from what we shared there and what we'll share going forward. We also have video abstracts that are available. As part of most research papers, you complete an abstract, and those are usually written in very technical sense. So to complement the papers that we have coming out or other activities, we have video abstracts that help to summarize those. So go to our YouTube page and you can find all of our video abstracts there, and they're very short. So if you don't have much time, perfect. They're very short snippets. And then I'm just going to share with you a couple upcoming activities that we have. So the Center for Integrative and Environmental Health Sciences is hosting a youth exchange session, and this is featuring our very own Dr. Rachel Keith, who is Director of Human Studies here in the Environ Institute. So she'll be there to share about e-cigarettes and youth. And then our Green Heart Project has so many exciting things happening, literally as we speak. Tree planting kicked off last week in the Green Heart neighborhood and continues even today. Tree planting is happening right now. So on November 8th, the Chief of the Division of Environmental Medicine and Director of the Christina Lee Brown Environment Institute, Dr. Aruni Bhatnagar, will speak on the connection between trees and health. So be sure to tune in for that special conversation. And then later in November, our Superfund Research Center's Community Engagement Corps is hosting a community knowledge exchange session. This will be on November 23rd at noon via Zoom. And we'll have two special guests that will be speaking, Dr. Ray Yeager, who's an assistant professor in the School of Public Health and also a colleague within the Environ Institute, and Michelle King from the Air Pollution Control District here in Louisville will share about active sources of volatile organic compound exposures and where those may be in the community and what people are doing about them. So please join that. Stay tuned for connection information to that. The formal announcement will be coming soon. With that, we want to thank our special guest, Dr. Alok Amraotkar, for sharing with us about the NEAT trial and all of the insight that goes into designing a clinical trial study. We want to thank you for taking time to join us for our Science Communication Office Hour. And special thanks to our research team, our science communications team, Dr. Hellman, Dr. Carl, Lauren Anderson, all of you. We actually have past members. I think I have special guests at the moment. So we have past team members that we also have to thank for contributing to this. Leave a comment on our Facebook video. Visit us at envirominstitute.org. Email us at envirom@louisville.edu, and then follow us on Twitter at U of L Envirom. Thank you so much for your time today. And we look forward to the next time.
Great.